Leave the drama for your mama and some other city. We done.
Get that stuff out of here. It's Southwest Bias.
Welcome into another edition of Southwest Bias, live from Studio K, brought to you by our friends at Circle K. Don't forget to become a member of the Inner Circle. I'm going to tell you this. I dropped my daughter off at school, her first day of school today, and you're probably wondering, what does this have to do with anything? Well, it reminded me of fresh starts and how it's important sometimes to get a completely new view of things. And when we're kids, that first day of school, that new classroom, that different teacher, those different classmates, it's almost like a reset for those kids. And I feel like that's where the Phoenix Suns are right now. It's a reset, a refresh, a chance to move away from the drama and get to something different. Will it be better? We hope. We don't know. But it's certainly going to be different. And at least it means moving on from what has happened over the last few years. And yeah, it's easy to say move on, forget, and we'll get there. But I think that there are lessons to be learned from this entire 2-year experiment, 2.5-year experiment that failed miserably. And I don't think it's just things that apply to the Suns. I think all Arizona sports teams can look at that and find things that they could learn when it comes to team building. And look, I think the biggest one for me is that chasing stars, getting big names, doesn't actually make you successful. Kevin Durant is probably the biggest name to ever play for the Phoenix Suns. And I know Charles Barkley, Steve Nash, there have been guys that have had major success. But where people rank Kevin Durant in terms of his success in the league, his play overall, his impact on the game, he's probably the biggest name to ever put on a Suns uniform. Bradley Beal averaged 30 points at one point a game in Washington, was the star, was that guy there in Washington. And you brought 2 stars in and you said, okay, we're going to push aside the way that we were building because we want to take a big swing. And honestly, I think if you didn't have the knowledge of the way it turned out and you just went back in time again, I think 9 out of 10 times, you probably still make the Kevin Durant trade, right? That was a trade that you get a chance to get an all-world player, but it doesn't work out all the time when you chase stars, especially in today's sports world. There's only so much that chasing stars can do. Maybe baseball, maybe the Diamondbacks, it's a little different. But when you look at their track record, their history, at least in chasing big-name starting pitchers, it doesn't work. It hasn't worked. And I think that's a lesson that they could learn. The Cardinals appear to have learned that lesson because instead of churning through bigger names that maybe are past their prime, they're trying to build with younger cores. They're trying to build with guys that are coming in their prime. So that to me is one of the biggest lessons. I think another one that comes out of this situation is sometimes it's all right to just move on when things aren't going well. I actually think that's a lesson we could all learn, right? That sometimes it's all right to just say this doesn't work. That I don't think this is healthy. That this is not what we thought it would be. That it's just not going to succeed. And I think general managers sometimes are afraid to admit that because that's saying, I failed in putting this together. But I think it's the best course of action in a lot of ways Doubling down on something that isn't going to work is just not the way to go about things. And I think the Diamondbacks could look at that going to the trade deadline. This season has been a disaster for them. So maybe take a page out of the Suns book and say, it's time to move on from some of these guys and get some draft capital, get some young players from farm systems around other leagues, get players that could come in and fit a timetable. I think they need to consider that. This is one of the bigger ones. Chemistry isn't just for scientists. It actually matters in sports, right? Just throwing a bunch of guys together and hoping you can microwave success isn't going to usually happen, right? It's not what you need to do. You look at it, and if you do not have chemistry, it does not work on the court, on the field, on the diamond. Because talent on paper is one thing, but when you put it into effect, when you go out and play, if guys don't vibe together, if they don't play well, if they do not get along, it's not going to work. That locker room, that clubhouse, those have to be a group of guys that are fighting for one common purpose, that get along and are capable of doing that. And if you put things that don't mix, guys that don't work together, you're going to have what the Suns had the last 2 years, catastrophic disappointment. And when you put stars together with bad chemistry, you have lofty expectations and catastrophic disappointment. And any team, even the colleges here, ASU and U of A, can learn from that chemistry matters, that it's important, that taking care of that part of it matters just as much as looking at the analytics, looking at the way guys play, looking at the system that you're running. If you don't have that connection part, it will not matter. And some people will point to, Kobe and Shaq hated each other on the Lakers. Yeah, but they had a common goal. They both were driven by winning, and when they got on the court, they put that crap aside. You don't have to be best friends. I'm not telling you that you have to necessarily love the guy that you're playing with, but you have to respect it, and when you put it together on the court, there has to be chemistry, right? I think Houston and the Clippers are going to deal with this too. They're jamming in talent because, this is what we want, or this is affordable, or James Harden recruited Bradley Beal. Well, guess what? If it doesn't all mesh, you're going to be just as screwed as the Suns were the last 2 years. And any team in this town it will have that same problem if they don't have it. Look at the 2021 Suns, fueled by vibes. The 2009 Cardinals, the same way. The 2023 Diamondbacks. All of that was predicated on the vibes. And I hate the word, but it's the truth. It was predicated on a lot of that. I think another thing that you can take from it is a dramatic duo can't make a big three. And I'm sorry, but Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal and the expectations brought a certain level of drama along with it. And that's just how it happens, right? That the chirping at people, the press conferences, the media availabilities where there's certain kind of jabs at people. Drama does not work, and the dramatic duo of Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal kind of somewhat brought the circus to town. Suns fans did not help. Suns fans were dramatic as well. I mean, overly so. And cruel in some of the things that they said to these players. But there's a certain level of drama that came along with it. And it was not great. Not great across the board, right? And I think that is a huge part of this as well. Another lesson that all teams in the Valley can learn from this is don't mix family with business, because it complicates things. Bradley Beal, his agent is Mark Bartelstein. Josh Bartelstein's the Suns CEO. And I don't think anything was done wrong in those terms. And you're going to have to do some business if your dad's an agent and you're in the front office. But I think in this particular situation, it just complicated things from a fan's viewpoint, because then it just gave everybody things to snipe at, right? And it continues. They only got him to, they only got him to give up $13.9 million. Why didn't they negotiate harder? Guess what? Because Bradley Beal had no reason to give up more money than that. It had nothing to do with the father-son dynamic, but it certainly clouded things for certain people and made it easier to snipe about it. This one's a personal one, but I think we all can learn from it in one way or another. Watch what you say on live streams, because that crap lives forever.
I can't believe this is my life. Let's go to the news.
Yeah, that was the PHNX Suns crew. Yeah, that was me in there as well, celebrating when Bradley Beal got here. So I'm willing to, old frozen takes myself. But when I see him, I react in this way, Shane. Yeah, I want to run and hide. Very much like those two people at the Coldplay concert. I will even duck down and crawl out of the room I'm in if I see it, just like they did. Because it's embarrassing, but we all have those kind of takes. Just don't necessarily say them into a mic sometimes. I don't know. It's easy to go back in hindsight, and I think that's a lesson for all of us as well. As in hindsight, it's easy to, crap on a situation, make fun of it, look at it and go, how in the world, this was awful. But in the moment, a lot of people liked it, including national media. So just remember, hindsight is definitely 2020. But the last one is a Spider-Man phrase. It's from the original Spider-Man movie. With great power comes great responsibility. And I think that's something that Suns owner Matt Ishbia learned along the way. That it's just because you're successful in business doesn't mean you're going to be able to figure it all out in the first few years. And, we talked with Mark Cuban about this at Summer League, and he said, the same thing. It's not easy. You come in, you want to make big moves. You try to make big moves. And it doesn't always necessarily pan out the way that you hoped. That's a lesson learned. I think it's a lesson every owner tries to learn early on. I also hope it's a lesson that James Jones learned as well, because I don't think he is without blame in this. And I think a lot of people were like, well, no, he was in the room. He had part to do with it. I've heard multiple things. I think that's a lesson I hope he learned too for the next time he gets an opportunity. Today is day one of a new phase for Suns fans. At least it should be. The drama is other cities' problems now. It's not ours. And it's a chance for a reset, because that's important. An ability to say the past is the past. Let's move on to the future. And hopefully, even if it doesn't equate to more wins immediately, it at least makes it a hell of a lot more enjoyable. But that doesn't mean there's lessons we can't take along the way as we go to the future. But maybe that's just my Southwest bias. We welcome in the mustache behind the Mac, Shane Diefenbach over there. Shane, how are you, my friend?
I am just peachy. You said that it was other cities' problems now, but it's still our problem, apparently.
Yeah, well, I've seen that Twitter is burning down. Oh, Eric Gruby, our PHNX Suns host.
Eric tweets, man, I'm so glad Durant and Beal are off the Suns. If you told me 2 years ago I'd feel that way, I would have laughed at you, but it's clear that keeping either of them on the team was unsustainable for the culture. Never been more ready for a new era of basketball in Phoenix. And a familiar Twitter, Avi, is in the mentions with Kevin Durant saying, what culture is that? He has been on one on Twitter today.
Okay, the culture of disappointment and not winning. I mean, look, you finished 10 games under 500. You flamed out with championship expectations. At least admit that, right? Like, nobody's saying anybody was bad guys. Nobody's saying anybody had ill intent when they came in, right? But to me, at least own that winning did not happen here. That it was untenable by the end, that you couldn't keep it going because there weren't signs of hope, and that you would mortgage the future too much for it to happen. I don't think Kevin Durant's a scapegoat. I don't think that Bradley Beal is a scapegoat. I think it was bad coaching. There were problems. They didn't win. It's that simple. And I get it. Kevin Durant feels a certain way. And him and Bradley Beal, Suns fans are not innocent in this. They're culpable in this too, for the approach that they took, the personal attacks, some of the awful things that they said directly to both of these players. And maybe that's a byproduct of social media now. Maybe that's just what every fan base does now. But come on, I think that played a part in it as well. Nobody has clean hands in this situation. Everybody did something that caused an issue. And literally, I mean, I think that there are lessons to be learned. And Casham Daly says you were literally just here using them as scapegoats. No, I'm simply saying you can learn lessons from that. And the culture, it wasn't just them. It was the whole thing. That's why you fired two coaches. That's why you moved on.
If you listen to any PHNX programming in the past 2 years, nobody has used those two as the problem. No, not once.
I mean, especially Kevin Durant. Look, he on the court, he played fantastic.
He was the only reason why they won games last year. They were horrible without him.
Yeah,
nobody is saying that. No. The issue was the roster building. The issue was bringing in the wrong coaches.
The issue was it didn't work together.
Yeah,
like Kevin Durant can be a great player, and it could not have worked in Phoenix. And both can be true, and they all can have culpability in it. That's what I don't get here. Learn that lesson. Everybody can be culpable in a situation. Even the guy that drops 27 points a game. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, it didn't work. Just admit that and move on. And I think that's what we all need to do. Didn't work. Moved on. Nobody's a horrible person. Nobody did anything, overly horrible. I mean, Suns fans got right to that line, some people online, and making Bradley Beal's kid cry was pretty messed up, but nobody, was Casham Daly. I wasn't saying they're toxic. I was saying the situation was toxic, and I don't think you can deny that. I mean, did it feel like there wasn't tension last year? I mean, that whole thing felt like tension, and maybe a lot of it was Bud, but the whole thing felt like tension. Nobody could have gone through another year of that. Nobody. So you had to move on with it. And I think you can learn from that as well. When you're putting together a roster, you need to make sure everything fits. Putting together Bradley Beal, and a guy that was used to being ball dominant for a decade of his career in Washington, and trying to figure that didn't work. Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal didn't work. That's on the front office in some ways for putting it together. The culture in the locker room is everybody that was in that locker room is part of it, right? Like, you can point a finger at one guy and try to put the blame, but there's, 20 others that share in it, all right? I mean, the whole Twitter stuff going on today, is ridiculous too. Suns fans, just stop. Kevin Durant's gonna reply because that's his right, and that's whatever. He's with Houston. Bradley Beal's in LA. They have new relationships. We've gotten a new relationship here with the new guys on the roster. Just let's move on. That's where we've got to go. I know breakups aren't easy, but hell, let's move on. And the front office ownership, they're culpable and they have to prove it too, right? Today might be the day. Bear Family Canna says, just stop using Twitter. Watch your mental health improve. Today might be the day that I finally retire from Twitter X. On the other side of the break, we wrap up. Well, we get the last three before the number one on the what if list on PHNX Rank Week. We'll do that and much more. You're watching Southwest Bias. Plenty of shade being thrown online today, for sure, from multiple directions. But if you need shade in your backyard, our friends at All Pro Shade Concepts got you covered. I used them. I've told you about this, and they were spectacular. The service is second to none. The shade that we installed is fantastic. It has helped cool down our home. It has helped shade our backyard a little bit. It is unbelievable, the drop down shade, and we got the mechanical kind. The materials that they use are spectacular. You're going to want to work with them because they were voted number one by Ranking Arizona for patio shades in 2024. They're an A+ rating on the BBBA or BBB, the Better Business Bureau, and they have 1,000 5-star reviews on Google. So why wouldn't you want to join them? Get a free quote today by calling 623-204-1476 or visiting allproshadeconcepts.com. And Gila River Resorts and Casinos. There is no better place to spend a weekend, to spend a night, to spend a whole week if you're feeling like it, because their resorts are unbelievable. Their gaming floor is spectacular, right? I have been to that place so many times, and the events that they hold, not just the PHNX ones, but some of the concerts, the comedy shows, everything that they have there, it is legendary. And their sports book is a spectacular place to watch UFC, to watch golf, to watch IndyCar racing, to watch the WNBA, whatever you're into, it is a great place to spend a night, a weekend, whatever it is. And NFL season's coming up, so you can head out there and watch NFL Sunday as much as you want. You got all the TVs, you got everything you need. So you do you at Gila River Resorts and Casinos. Visit playatgila.com for more details. Want to say hello to Goon, my wife. A bunch of people in the chat today, 120 plus of you here. Hit that like button, subscribe. Do me a favor. I want to get up to 50 likes before we get out of here. So pound that like button like it's something you're angry at right now. All right, hit that like button like you mean it. It is What If Week. It's Rank Week here at PHNX and throughout ALLCITY, and we are down to 4 on the list, Shane. I don't know why we've punished ourselves like this, but we have. By the way, I did not say Dagoon is my wife. I said my wife is also in the chat. But we've punished ourselves with some of the biggest what ifs in Arizona sports history. And I think the most painful one is here at number 4. It's what if the Coyotes never moved to Glendale? And to me, this is a huge one because they had a deal for an arena in Scottsdale, and they wind up kind of backing off of that deal because then part owner Steve Ellman really wanted a retail development to go along with it. And Richard Burke, the owner, was like, no, the arena needs to be in Scottsdale. He lost. Ellman got his way. Burke sold the rest of the team to Ellman, and Ellman only cared about Westgate. And that started the downslide of this franchise. They were successful at then America West Arena in downtown. They had playoff success. They had stars. They had cachet in the Valley. And then they moved to Glendale, far away from their fan base in the East Valley, and everything took a turn. They lost revenue. They went through ownership issues. They wound up not being a good hockey team, and the wheels just fell off. And then you wind up with the mess with the Morello family, and they wind up moving to Utah. This was the moment that destroyed the hope of the Coyotes lasting long-term in Arizona. And if I could turn back the clock and adjust one thing, it would be that they got that arena in Scottsdale, not too far off the 202, where Los Arcos Mall used to be. It would have changed everything. And I think hockey would have been a success. And instead of seeing the first title to a Southwest team go to Las Vegas, a team in the desert, I think the Coyotes would have won a championship if they had that building. because ownership would have spent. Richard Burke was a dedicated owner that cared. Things would have been dramatically different if this had gone a different way. And our head of content, Leah Merrill, who you've seen on the program that tried to convince me to watch Love Island, and I actually did, she wrote an unbelievable piece about this today on the website. If anybody knows Coyotes hockey, it's her, and I implore you to go to gophnx.com and read it. Number 3 on the list, and I think these probably should have been flip-flopped, but number 3 on the list is, what if the Diamondbacks never signed Randy Johnson? And this one is interesting because he had been just traded to Scottsdale. He'd been traded to Scottsdale. He'd been traded to Houston and the Astros, and there was a chance that they might have re-signed him. But the Diamondbacks came in, Jerry Colangelo wooed him, and they got him to agree to come to a franchise that was just a year in existence. It was a bold move by Randy Johnson, and it changed the fortunes of the Diamondbacks because Jerry Colangelo believed that the team had to win early to establish a fan base here, and he went all in on Randy Johnson, and it paid off in the first year. They made the playoffs. Randy Johnson rattled off 4 straight Cy Young awards while wearing purple and teal, and he wound up forming one of the most formidable duos in him and Curt Schilling in terms of pitching, and went to the World Series and won one of the most dramatic World Series ever. If Randy Johnson doesn't sign here, the Diamondbacks probably don't have early success. The Diamondbacks don't win that title, and all sorts of issues probably occur. Now, there's a flip side here because the team did run into money issues, in part because of this Randy Johnson contract and some of the other spending that they did. Maybe if they don't go after Randy Johnson, Jerry Colangelo isn't forced out in what was kind of a hostile takeover because the finances of the team were so bad. Maybe they can spend more in the later 2000s and the early 2010s so they could have won a title then. So many what ifs, but I will take anything for a title, and Randy Johnson brought that. So that is number 3. Number 2 is a what if that I've even debated online with Seth Meyers of Late Night fame on NBC, because he's a Steelers fan and I'm obviously a Cardinals fan. And I still say to this day, Santonio Holmes never got that second foot down. That was not a touchdown in that Super Bowl, and the refs got it wrong. What if they call that right? What if Santonio Holmes does not score there with 35 seconds? The Cardinals defense has a chance to hold the Steelers to a field goal. They can force OT, and then Warner and Fitzgerald have a chance to do what they did all game and change the history of the Arizona Cardinals. This is a what if that I cannot deny should be number 2 on this list, because the Cardinals were so close to a title, and I still stand by the refs screwed up that call. Maybe it doesn't change anything. Maybe the Steelers score on the next play, but that will haunt my dreams forever.
He scored.
He didn't score.
Yes, he did.
He didn't score.
Yes,
I'll stand on business. You're wrong, Seth Meyers. Santonio Holmes never scored, and I don't care if your Homer Steeler take is still that he did. I stand by what I said. That is another edition of Southwest Bias in the books. Shout out to the mustache behind the Mac, Shane Diefenbach. You can follow him at Shane Dief. You can follow the show at PHNX_sports. I almost said Suns. _sports. We'll be back tomorrow to wrap up the what if list and have some other discussions about anything and everything that's going on in Arizona sports. But remember, when they're your ex, just stop following them. Stop paying attention and accept it's over. Ahoy, hoy!
We all silly like the mayor.